What up, everybody in the YTBC? Now, I really got to tell you about this motherfucker, but real quick, smash that like button. But anyways, you know, this bitch, this homosexual, and by the way, before I continue, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe. But anyways, this homosexual, this dude who likes other dudes, but wait, before I get into that, real quick, just want to remind everybody, as today's the last day to order your merch if you want it to arrive before Christmas. But anyways, now that I got all that out the way, let's go to badlefthook.com real quick. Oh, I forgot that I had my web browser on my Patreon. Well, since we're on my Patreon, let me just take the time to tell y'all that, you know, if you like the channel, go ahead and support the channel on Patreon. You could donate as little as $1 every month. It would help out a lot. If you want extra perks, our very lowest tier is, you know, it's the price of a PlayStation 4 for $400 a month. You get a special shout out on my channel. But anyways, let me go ahead and get now real quick. That was a joke. Of course, I don't have Patreon. I mean, if you like the video, please feel free to press like, but I'm not gonna be begging for likes every video. I'm not gonna tell you to donate to the channel. I don't monetize this shit. I don't do any of that. Now, the whole reason why I made that little skit, whatever you want to call it, is, I mean, I don't want to be that guy. I really don't. But Ticket TV is a fucking e-beggar. All right. I've been, checking out different people's perspective on what happened over the weekend. And I'm not one of these people who likes to sit in an echo chamber. I don't like to just hear what I want to hear. I want to hear different perspectives. I want to hear the people that I typically listen to on a regular basis, but I also like to hear, opposing views. I like to check out channels that I have made the conscious decision to not support them, but from time to time, just curious to hear what their perspective is. So, in doing so, I decided to check out what Ticket TV was saying, and I really couldn't get past the first 5 minutes. It was like 5 minutes of e-begging. And don't get me wrong, if you're somebody who wants to make money on YouTube, hell, maybe YouTube is even your primary source of income. I mean, do what you gotta do. But it gets to a point where it's a bit too much. Mentioning your merch maybe once a video is fine. I think it's retarded, but I mean, if that's what you want to do, you can remind people to subscribe to you and like the video if that's really what you want to do, but at least be sensible with it. Like, choose one thing. And if it's going to be like the video, don't tell people to like the video before you start the video. If it's going to be subscribe, don't say it every single fucking video. It just gets to be irritating. Say it somewhere at the end or whatever. Hatman is a good example. He goes through the topic of his video. He lets you know that he has a Patreon and what he offers on that Patreon. And it's always at the very end of the video. You don't have to skip ahead the first couple minutes just to get to the meat and potatoes of the video, to get to the topic, which is ultimately the reason why you clicked on the video in the first place. I apologize, you might hear some sirens, but like I said, I really don't want to be that guy, but he's a fucking e-beggar. There's no nice way to put it. Every time I go to the gas station, there's one gas station that I make it a point to avoid, because no matter what, whether it be on the way in, the way out, or both, somebody is asking me for money. And that's how I fucking felt when I checked out. When I checked out Ticket TV's video. And I'm sorry, I know I normally don't call out channels or whatnot, but I'm sorry, dude's a fucking e-beggar. I don't give a good goddamn how many subscribers you got. If you got to be begging people for money and to subscribe to you and all that, you ain't better than me. I do this shit for fun, shits and giggles. I make enough money in real life. I gotta come on YouTube and beg people for money. That is what I call e-begging. But anyways, I just wanted to rant about that a little bit. There's a couple things that I want to cover in this video. Believe it or not, that was not the topic of this video. Ooh, my throat is just dry. Anyways, let me go ahead and continue. A couple things that I want to address, because it seems like YouTube has just lost its fucking mind since Saturday. First off, before I get into anything else, I want to just say, I hope that Adonis Stevenson recovers. This story is very reminiscent of Gerald McCullum, who had a war with Nigel Benn that ultimately ended his career. And this situation with Adonis Stevenson is very reminiscent of that. And I certainly hope that Adonis Stevenson pulls through and comes out better than McCullum did, because McCullum, his quality of life just went down terribly. And even though Adonis Stevenson has never been my favorite fighter, he's never been one that I particularly cared for, I do have a base respect for anybody who laces them gloves and steps in that ring. And at the end of the day, I would like to see him be able to retire and be able to take care of his family and enjoy the money that he made during his career. So my thoughts and prayers goes out to Adonis Stevenson. Now, there's a whole lot of misconceptions that are going on in the YTBC. When I say the YTBC, I'm talking about any boxing channel that talks boxing on YouTube. I don't give a shit if you're LDBC. I don't give a shit if you're anything else, really. If we talk boxing, this includes you. And of course, I'm not calling out every single channel on YouTube. There's plenty of channels that are speaking sense, and like Boxing Wave and 10 Players and Jay Cotto. There's some channels that come to mind. Boxing Librarian. All these channels come to mind, and I think they're all speaking good sense. Big Faces Worldwide. Big Will. He's another one. I think he's a good channel. I think all these guys are. And if I didn't mention your name, sorry, I was just thinking of whoever I could off the top of my head. So it's definitely not, I don't think every fucking channel has lost its mind, but I do think that there's just a lot of crazy shit that's being talked. All right, now, the first thing I would like to do is I would like to address John Boxing. Now, I want to lay the foundation here, because I don't really know what John Boxing thinks of me right now. And not that I necessarily care, but whatever he feels about me, I at least want it to be based on reality. The reality is this. I unsubscribed from John Boxing earlier this year when he made some comments about the alleged comment, or it wasn't really alleged, it was Anthony Joshua had a controversial tweet. Anthony Joshua claims that he was not the one who sent that tweet, but John Boxing definitely had some things to say about it. I felt that it was time for me to withdraw my support from John Boxing's channel, and therefore that's what I did. Now, that being said, I never thought that John Boxing was a bad person. To this day, I still, don't think he's a bad person. There's just certain schools of thought that he subscribes to that I just can't roll with. But at the end of the day, I'd like to think that if somebody's house was on fire and John Boxing felt that he would be able to save whoever was in that house's life, I'd like to think that he would be willing to do that. It's just when it comes to the views that he wants to push on his channel, that's just not something that I'm interested in. Therefore, I withdrew my support. Now, that being said, he made some videos towards some individuals. First, Jay Cotto. I'm going to try to be short and sweet with this and try to make it make sense. All right. What Jay Cotto said about the 400 years of slavery and all that is objectively fact. It really had nothing to do with the fight between Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury, because had Deontay Wilder won the fight, it was not going to undo 400 years of slavery. It wasn't going to reduce it. It wasn't going to change it. What happened in the past happened. Furthermore, Tyson Fury does not come from a lineage of slave owners. He is known as a gypsy. Now, gypsies are actually not a nationality in their own right. Gypsies are basically anybody is considered people who have a traveling lifestyle. And unfortunately, in many cultures, they are looked down upon for whatever reason. For whatever reason, a lot of cultures, when they think gypsies, they think of second-class citizens or worse. Those are facts. Now, even if Deontay Wilder was fighting somebody who was a white American, well, that really wouldn't be relevant to slavery. Still wouldn't be relevant to his fight, because slavery, I'm not ever going to deny that slavery happened, because it did. However, it has been many, many, many generations since slavery has happened. Now, there's this whole school of thought where, for whatever reason, white people in America today are guilty. For whatever reason, and that doesn't make sense to me. And you could feel free to disagree with me, because John Boxing, my whole goal in saying these things to you is not to insult you. So I certainly hope I'm not coming off that way. Like I said, just because I unsubscribe from you doesn't mean that I dislike you particularly. I just can't roll with what you're pushing on your channel. So I'm saying this as respectably as I possibly can. All right. The reason why I have a hard time subscribing to that school of thought of, well, because your ancestors did this to my people, I'm going to be a certain way towards you. I'm going to treat you like you were the one who did that to my ancestors. The reason why I have a problem with that is because we don't judge people according to what their parents did. I mean, if you're, and this is just a hypothetical situation here. Let's say your father murdered somebody before you were born. You grow up. I'm not going to treat you like you're a murderer. I'm just not going to, because it's not right. Now, keep in mind, that is one generation down to the next. That's one generation separation, which to me is one generation enough. So why would I look at all white people like they're slave owners when that was many, many generations ago? Now, of course, after slavery was ended, things weren't perfect, but things have been moving in the right direction. Of course, you keep pushing toward utopia. Utopia is never going to happen, by the way, but you at least strive for it. Because if you have a goal, you're at least going to get somewhere. You may not get to a perfect society, but you can come pretty damn close. As long as there's ignorant people, and as long as there's fucking idiots, the idiotic things are going to be done, and those are going to be crimes. All right? It just is what it is. But we can at least mitigate that to the best of our ability, right? So, I mean, I just don't see how Deontay Wilder bringing up 400 years of slavery had anything to do with his fight. It just didn't. So therefore, I think, when it comes to what Jay Cotto said about that, I have to agree with him. Now, I don't agree with everything that Jay Cotto says, because he's I hope I don't come off as putting words in his mouth, but sometimes the things he says about the LDBC kind of makes it seem like everybody in the LDBC is racist. And I also don't subscribe to that. Now, I'm not saying that that's what he's saying for sure, but it certainly comes off that way sometimes. But he also says some things that kind of are opposite to that. So I think maybe when he's saying those things in his recordings, that's just how he articulates it. And that's fine. But, it's just, I don't really understand this whole school of thought, and that is why. Okay. But if we're being honest, Deontay Wilder defeating Tyson Fury, if you legitimately ask yourself, how is this going to further my civil rights? I think you're going to find that it really does diddly shit for you. Really. At the end of the day, if Deontay Wilder beats Tyson Fury, guess what? All that means is that he successfully defended his title and he made some money. There's nothing in there for you or any other African American, to be honest. Now, let me go ahead and move on to a video that you uploaded toward 68. Now, 68 and we have a history. And I legitimately did try to patch things up with him. When his father died, I gave my condolences, and he took it as I was trying to take a cheap shot at him. Now, I'll tell you right now, the shit that he said to me when we were going back and forth, it ain't that serious. It didn't bother me all that much. If it did, then I probably would have been like, oh, his father died? Well, fuck him. Good riddance. But I didn't do that. But for whatever reason, he thought I was taking cheap shots. Whatever. My conscience is clear when it comes to that. But anyways, that's here nor there. You really... you have to understand something. You really come off the wrong way when you're telling the guy that he shouldn't criticize Deontay Wilder because he's feeding into the, he's feeding the monster when he does that, and, he's just tearing down another black man. You see it that way because you're an African American, right? You live here in America, you have a black skin complexion. Now, 68, he also has a very similar skin complexion to yours. However, he's from a different part of the world. Now, I don't really know his whole story, if he was born in the UK or if he was born in Africa and moved there, but I think we can also come to the conclusion that at some point in his life, he spent a good portion living in the UK. He has the accent. Just certain things about how he talks and everything. It comes off as very UK, and I hope I'm not coming off the wrong way, because that's not my intent. All right. Now you're telling him that he should not criticize, expose, criticize, whatever words you want to use Deontay Wilder, because he's tearing down a brother and he's feeding the establishment that is racist and all this stuff. But how do you think he sees it when you're doing the very same thing to somebody who also has a dark skin complexion? Also, if you go far back enough, which to my understanding, I think, I don't know Joshua's story either, but if I'm not mistaken, I think I heard that his parents were from Africa, not African descendants in the UK. Like, they were born and raised and lived a good, portion of their lives in Nigeria. In fact, it might even, it's like I said, I don't know the whole story, but my point is, I think all you have to do is go back one generation before Joshua, and you find his parents right there, living and hailing from Nigeria. All right. Now, Anthony Joshua lives in the UK. You got all these people saying all this shit about Anthony Joshua. Is Anthony Joshua not black as well? Is that not his skin color? So being that 68 is from the UK, the very thing that you're telling him not to do to Deontay Wilder, a lot of people over here are doing to Anthony Joshua over there. You have to keep in mind, he's not from the US. He's from the UK. It's kind of hypocritical. What it all boils down to is this, all right? There's this big misconception that these fighters are civil rights leaders. It is a huge misconception. You want to know how I know that's a huge misconception? Because it wasn't all that long ago that Andre Ward was seen as that civil rights leader for the African American community. I mean, there was people who was defending him up and down like you wouldn't believe. You would think that he was their son. You would have thought that you would have thought that he wasn't son of God, he was son of theirs. You would have thought that he was their cousin, their brother, their uncle, the way that they was defending Andre Ward. And now Andre Ward has made some comments that are not favorable toward Deontay Wilder. And all of a sudden, everybody has a problem with Andre Ward. Well, the problem really isn't Andre Ward in the equation. The problem is your perception that he was ever a civil rights leader. There's not really many athletes these days that are civil rights leaders. The only one that comes to mind is Colin Kaepernick. And I don't particularly agree with some of his stances, but at the end of the day, if anybody is a civil rights leader for the African American community, it's him. It's not Andre Ward, and it sure as hell ain't Deontay Wilder. Same thing with Floyd Mayweather Jr. He's also getting thrown under the bus just because he said that he feels that Fury won the fight. Now, here's the thing. As far as Andre Ward and Floyd Mayweather are concerned, why would they say that they think that Deontay Wilder won the fight when Tyson Fury was doing what those two were known to do. Slipping and dodging punches. Now, granted, I'm not saying that Tyson Fury is on the same level, but if that was their bread and butter and that is how they won their fights, why would they say that they felt that Deontay Wilder won? Why would they? They've gotten the decision on the defensive side of the coin so much. How could they see it any other way? Think about that. Because, like I said, they're not civil rights leaders. They're not just going to say that Deontay Wilder won in the name of civil rights. Okay? You want to know who was making a statement when they were fighting? Jack Johnson. Because when he fought, he wasn't allowed to fight for the heavyweight championship, and he did it anyways. Despite the fact that he was a black man in America, he found a way. He had to travel to a whole nother country to do it, but he did it. And he rubbed it right in the racist American's face. Now, I'm not saying every American was racist, but the ones that were, they got it rubbed all up in their face. We all know what happened with Jim Jeffries, the Great White Hope. I'm not going into the whole history. That was a civil rights leader. Joe Louis. When Joe Louis beat Schmeling, that was making a statement. It wasn't really civil rights, but still made more of a statement than what Wilder would have if he would have beat Fury. Hitler and the Nazi Party, they had Germany thinking that the Aryan race was the superior race. And they got proven wrong a couple times, not just by Joe Louis, but Joe Louis was part of that. He beat their German champion. All the propaganda in the world couldn't undo what Joe Louis did to Schmeling. That's a leader that is fighting for something beyond his sport. Muhammad Ali. He did the art of fighting without fighting by refusing to go to Vietnam. And regardless of the fact that they would strip him of his title and wouldn't allow him to get a boxing license, he stood his ground. Now you tell me, what is it that Deontay Wilder is doing that is anywhere near any of that? What did Andre Ward do that was anywhere on that level? And don't tell me, fighting in the adversity of the media. Because let me explain something. Just because somebody who is not black is criticizing Andre Ward, and just because every time you see Andre Ward, your dick swells up with joy, that doesn't mean that the people who criticize him are racist. Any fighter can be criticized. Any fighter. I have sat back and listened to Coach Shelton Harrison criticize Triple G till no end. Now, I'm a Triple G fan, and not once have I ever thumbed down a video, not once have I ever accused him of being racist. I still don't think he's racist, by the way. That's one thing that I have to disagree with Jay Cotto on when he called him racist. From my experience, he's not. When it comes to the sport of boxing, however, there are certainly things that I disagree with, but it ain't that serious where I say, well, the only way that he's criticizing Triple G the way he is because he's racist. No, I don't think Coach Shelton Harrison is racist at all. All right, we simply have a difference of opinion when it comes to Triple G. So, if I'm not calling people who criticize Triple G racist just because they have some negative things to say about him and they're not white and I'm not white either, for anybody who's listening and doesn't know, then why would I find it acceptable for people to label anybody who criticizes Andre Ward, or in the case of today, of these days, because guess what? The day that Deontay Wilder retires and he criticizes the next, boxer that people with a political agenda want to push, the second that he criticizes that fighter, he's going to be labeled a coon and a buck dancer and all that. Don't tell me it's not true, because it has already happened. It's even happened to Deontay Wilder already, when he went for the exoneration of Jack Johnson. So don't act like it wouldn't happen, because it already has. People have been so fucking inconsistent with their stance that they're stepping on their own toes. That is fact. The black race is not the most hated race in the world. At one time, it was the most hated race in America. These days, it's just simply not the case. Like I said, it ain't perfect, but it's a hell of a lot better than it's been in the past, and we're continuously moving in the right direction. There are no fundamental rights that white people have that Hispanics and blacks don't have. This isn't the days where you went and asked, how much would it cost to turn one of those whites only pies into Negro pie? These ain't those days. All right. Some of the highest paid athletes are African American here in America. So don't give me that. And no, it doesn't undo what happened in the past. But guess what? Those fuckers who did that shit back then, they're not alive today. If they were, I'd say yes, put them on trial. Lynch some of them. But they're long gone. Let's not live in the past. Let's salvage what we have left. Let's make sure that our children never have to witness any of that shit. And guess what? Reinstating segregation, acting like the white people today are the white people from back then, is not going to be productive. It's going to be anti-productive, really. I mean, this shit has gotten way out of hand. Like, fuck, man. Like, we just need to be able to talk boxing without being labeled. You know, it was refreshing to see Zone 6 disagree with Jay Cotto on what he said about Deontay Wilder, but not have to bring race into it. Not have to insult him. Give his reasons. There was some things that Zone 6 said that I didn't particularly agree with, but to each his own. I can't see it the way that Zone 6 does, and I honestly can't see it how Jay Cotto does, because guess what? I'm the Red Glove militant. I see it my way, and that's the only way I can see it. But to act like just because one, if it happens to one black guy, it happens to all of y'all. No. That's not how that shit works. How it works is everybody's responsible for their own individual actions. If your cousin goes out and rapes somebody, that does not make you a rapist. If your brother went out and murdered somebody, that does not make you a murderer. If your sister decides to go out and be a whore. That doesn't mean you run a brothel, and it doesn't mean that you are a man whore. Now, all this stuff wasn't really directed toward John boxing. A small portion was. But this video in the grand scheme of things is just... whoever comes across this video, like... Just ask yourself, like... if you are a boxing channel, then do boxing. If you're a political channel, then do politics. But don't come on and label your channel a boxing channel and all you're doing is pushing politics. It's very misleading and very disingenuous. I certainly hope that whoever comes across this video takes it for what it is. Hopefully you see my intent is to make shit better. And if you do anything that is remotely close to e-begging, please, I mean, like I said, nothing wrong with making money on the internet, nothing wrong with making money on YouTube. But damn, don't you think your shit is going to sell? People are going to subscribe, people are going to donate to your Patreon if you just once in a while let them know that shit exists? Because if they like you enough, they're going to do it anyways. If I'll tell you what, any channel that I like, I actually will watch, after watching a couple of their videos, check out the description and see if they have any of that shit. No, it may not be a monthly donation, but I just may make a, one time or a couple time donation. Other than that, to my subscribers, anybody watching my videos, or if you just so happen to stumble on this video, hope you have a wonderful and blessed day. Peace.